Okay, so many of you who've been coming for multiple of the 15 prior CAP workshops have seen some of this material before, but there are some new things. So I'll quiz you at the end of what was new. These are my major topics in this presentation. So first, I'm going to just start with what is the CAP standard. Imagine this breaking news. A flood is coming. Lives are at stake. People need to be warned. You need to know the key facts for this emergency. What is the emergency? Where is the affected area? How soon do we need to act? How bad will it be? How certain are the experts? And what should we do? So CAP is the international standard for communicating those key facts for all types of hazards across all kinds of media. You can picture CAP as a standard business form in paper on a clipboard. Everyone involved in the emergency should have at least these key facts communicated by a CAP alert. So a CAP alert is like a traditional news article, but the key facts are given in separate elements. And many of those elements give actual data, not just free text. The data in CAP are coded values. It's essential for automated processing, for routing, for translation, and much more. So the text and data of a CAP message are given in XML format, as you can see in this example. The sender name here is the National Weather Service, Sacramento, California. And we see the headline, Severe Thunderstorm Warning. Then we have the description. It says, hail, intense rain, strong damaging winds. And the instruction says, take cover in a substantial shelter until the storm passes. Notice the alerting area. For human readers, we have the area described in text. But for automated processing, text doesn't cut it. The area is given as data. It's the actual latitude, longitude boundary of the polygon for that area. So CAP, ITUT recommendation X.1303, standardizes the key facts for any kind of emergency. It's designed for dissemination over all kinds of media or communication channels. Alerting authorities embrace CAP because they want their alerts to reach everyone in the alerting area. One factor that is affecting that dissemination is we're in the midst of a transition from mass media to online media. Much of today's public alerting is still based on mass media, such as broadcast radio and television. For many decades, these have been the essential ways to reach people in harm's way. So television stations insert a crawl text. Radio and stations insert an audio message. And this public-private collaboration has required decades to implement, and it still consumes huge ongoing investments in specialized technology. But think about it. That mass media approach does nothing to reach users of online media. You know, if you're watching the ball game on your smartphone, no crawl text. Would you even know something was happening? So online media users are missing out on the alerts that they would have gotten if they just kept using mass media. Now, Google has a solution. They leverage CAP to deliver alerts to people who are using Google tools. Here's Google showing the alert of a storm surge in St. John's, Canada. Used by billions of people worldwide, Google services disseminate CAP alerts already via Google Search, Google Maps, and Android push notifications. Here we also see a tornado warning from the US National Weather Service. And this one is overriding the web advertisements that are seen by users who happen to be in the alerting area. Digital billboards also carry CAP messages in the United States as well. And that's a very smart advertising strategy for them. CAP alerts can also be sent directly to your in-vehicle navigation system, your Garmin, your TomTom, and leading car manufacturers worldwide. These alerts will enable the driver to avoid that danger area. This is a mature technology embedded already in millions of devices. In all of these cases, the web advertisements, the Google, the car manufacturers, they're picking up the alerts from a global scale CAP alert hub. Throughout here, we are seeing digital media companies using their own resources to help get warnings out. It's an amazing surge of innovation around emergency alerting, and it's happening because of the CAP standard. Traditionally, governments implemented a vast range of alerting systems, from local communities up to entire nations. Societies everywhere have a patchwork of systems. These are often designed just for a particular emergency situation, communicating over a particular communications media. Without the CAP standard, it's just impossible to achieve an all hazards, all media, public alerting on any sort of broad scale. So CAP took us beyond this crazy patchwork. With CAP, we have simple tools that can be used to get emergency alerts to affected people wherever they are, whatever they're doing. So let me draw that out. Let me highlight some of the benefits of CAP. First, CAP makes it quicker and easier to issue alerts. Alerting authorities without CAP issue their alerts by making phone calls, sending faxes, sending emails, posting to web pages, posting to Facebook and Twitter, and so on. Those activities consume time, and that distracts from their real mission, which is to compose accurate and actionable alerts. So with CAP, a single alert disseminates quickly over multiple alerting methods. And from the receiver perspective, CAP is the fastest way to get alerts from an alerting authority. And CAP is a lot less error prone. Think about a complex emergency where information of many types has to be assimilated from many different sources over scales ranging from very local to national, maybe even global. And alerts are a really big part of that. Without CAP, the variety of different kinds of alerts makes it really difficult to get, use, and share that kind of information because there's so many kinds of formats and over different media. With CAP alerts, that information gathering and analysis is much easier. In fact, we see CAP used in what's called, in emergency management, shared situational awareness, or maintaining a common operating picture. Here we see CAP alerts displayed on a map interface. And maps like this help audiences understand complex or evolving emergencies, whether in the Emergency Operations Center or being broadcast to users at home so they can see what's really going on. Trust in an alerting system is eroded whenever people miss out on alerts. And trust is also eroded when people get alerts that just weren't intended for them. Unfortunately, that happens pretty often with systems that are just plain text. But with CAP, we have that alerting area that's very precisely defined with polygons and circles, in addition to just that text area description. Many people in harm's way are underserved with current public alerting because they're blind, or they're deaf, or they're cognitively impaired, or they just don't understand the language used in the alert. They can be much better served by exploiting the data in the CAP alert, because that's language independent, as well as by leveraging automated translation. Now, some types of hazard occur so suddenly that seconds mean the difference between a timely life-saving alert and an alert that just arrived too late. Examples: earthquakes, tornado, tsunami, flash floods, volcanoes, landslide, terrorism. CAP alerts can be posted immediately and then immediately disseminated, sometimes within seconds. Also, the CAP alert is digital. That enables immediate action not only by people, but by devices like sirens, like highway signs, like train controls, and other automated mechanisms that help save lives. Multiple authorities get involved in any complex, extensive, or evolving emergency. Think about the scientific and technical agencies. Now, they're expert at characterizing the hazard threat. They're typically not empowered to actually instruct people on actions such as evacuation. Their CAP alert, the Science and Tech Agency, monitor local media for instructions from your civic authorities. Now, the civic authorities are empowered to instruct people on actions such as evacuation, but they're not experts in the actual hazard. So their CAP alert quotes the scientific and technical agency, and in their instruction, they include the actual evacuation route, taking into account what bridges are out, where police are deployed, those kinds of things. So whenever an emergency is complex or extensive, there's all of that going on, and it's also really common that you have nested or overlapping jurisdictions, adjacent jurisdictions, or a city embedded within a state, within a nation. Use of CAP by all of these alerting authorities, scientific and technical versus the civic, the different layers, the neighboring jurisdictions, they all can use CAP as the emergency unfolds, and that's what assures that the key facts are communicated coherently. Given that emergency alerting is often life critical, it's really important for receivers that they can be sure that the warning source, the warning service, is authoritative. Because emergency alerting is using large-scale public networks, it's no longer possible to know your source personally, which was probably the case in a small town. So we have the International Register of Alerting Authorities. It's kind of like a referral service. So you trust the registered alerting authority because you trust the service that registered them. This is the International Register of Alerting Authorities. It's operated by the World Meteorological Organization in association with the International Telecommunications Union. Here's the register record for just one particular alerting authority. This is the U.S. National Weather Service. We see their hazard categories for which they typically issue alerts. And here we see also their typical alerting area. And notice this register record has a CAP feed URL. And we can go there. This is the National Weather Service, which maintains thousands, just the U.S. National Weather Service, thousands of CAP news feeds by county and by forecast zone. And here at the bottom, you see the URL, which is their aggregate CAP feed at national scale. So I'm going to give you some examples of CAP-enabled alerting systems that I know about personally. It's, of course, only a tiny proportion of the CAP systems available worldwide. My opening slide showed a flood emergency, and Suzine talked about the flash flood guidance system, 74 countries, I think she mentioned. Here we see CAP as used in that international flash flood guidance system. Here is India's CAP-based integrated disaster early warning platform used by disaster management authorities, and we'll have a presentation in detail about this during the workshop. Here, the aggregation proceeds, if you can see over on the left, from the village and city level through the district and state levels and on up to the national level. China has a CAP-enabled all hazards alert system called NURES, the National Early Warning Release System. And again, we're going to have a presentation in detail on that by Cao Qiu. NURES has 1 national, 31 provincial, 343 municipal, and 2,015 county centers. China's CAP newsfeed is aggregated into our global scale CAP alert hubs. I'll have more to say about those. So here's a global view of CAP uptake at the country level. Today, 91% of the world's population lives in a country with at least 1 national CAP newsfeed operational, which is 85% green on this map, and another 6% that are in testing right now. And that's using my CAP alert tool that we'll see later. That 6% is yellow in this map. The countries shown in gray haven't yet begun testing CAP, as far as I know. And a large percentage of these are least developed or developing countries. Sadly, those are the very countries that are especially vulnerable to disasters. Now, recognizing this CAP implementation gap, international organizations, international NGOs, and international companies involved in emergency alerting have been urged to endorse the call to action on emergency alerting. That's this simple sentence: to scale up efforts to ensure that by 2025, all countries have the capability for effective, authoritative emergency alerting that leverages the Common Alerting Protocol, CAP, suitable for all media and all hazards. And I mentioned we have 85% of the world's population that has 1 national CAP alert news feed operational. That is up from 42% in 2017. So for the first 5 years, we were increasing at 8% per year. At that rate, we were on track to reach 100% in 2025. However, I will say in this last year, it's fallen off, and I think we could talk more about that under the UN early warning for all, the effect it's had on slowing down CAP uptake. There are free tools for countries who want to implement CAP at no cost and with nothing to install. This is a link to the CAP publishing tool called CAP Editor, which will be my next presentation. It's now in use by 65 countries, and I'll talk more about that. It's a cloud-based service, so it's very easy to implement, and anybody can try it out as a guest. Although to actually issue alerts, you have to set up people who get a password so that you don't have people at random issuing alerts for your country. These are the logos of the endorsements of the call to action on emergency alerting. That's 7 major companies: Intersect, Medio Blue, Google, Everbridge, AccuWeather, Open Broadcaster, and my own, alerthub.org. We also have endorsements by 10 major international organizations. And there I would count the Traveler Information Services Association, TISA, again, we'll be presenting later. World Broadcasting Unions, also presenting later. Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, which is a part of that. The European Emergency Number Association, the IAEM, International Association of Emergency Management, one of our co-sponsors, MediAlarm, ITU, Open Commons Consortium, UNDRR, that's the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Office, and the World Meteorological Organization, WMO. NGOs and standards groups have also endorsed the call to action, and I would call out here IFRC, International Federation of Red Cross Red Crescent Societies, and OASIS. I would also note the endorsement by International Telecommunications Union, ITU, notes that CAP is part of the ITU guidelines for developing national emergency telecommunications plans. And I think we'll hear more about that from ITU later. Also, CEN. CEN is the CEN, is the Standards Organization for Europe. And in 2023, CEN issues its workshop agreement on requirements and recommendations for social media early warning messages in crisis and disaster management. That agreement includes this requirement in regard to CAP. Quote, to ensure consistency, clarity, and completeness of the messages disseminated simultaneous across different channels, the social media early warning messages and related notifications shall refer to the persistent unique URL of the CAP message. This is a very important agreement. It's going to help avoid public confusion when we see social media messages expressed differently than the CAP alerts for the same emergency. They need to be tied together. And of course, all systems for publishing emergency alert messages now need to implement this feature, particularly already a requirement in each nation of Europe. There's more to say here quickly about CAP alert hubs. A CAP alert hub subscribes to published CAP alert feeds and offers the aggregate to its own subscribers. It's important here to emphasize the CAP alert hub is only a copy of the alert. It is not in the role of an alerting authority. It's more of a publisher rather than an originator or an editor of CAP alerts. A CAP alert hub aggregates the feeds in one location almost as soon as the alert is posted online. So we're talking about a minute or so of a time. There are several benefits for having CAP feeds aggregated on a CAP-based alert hub. First, I mentioned speed. Dissemination time, remember, that's critical for sudden onset events like earthquakes, tsunami, terrorist strikes, tornadoes. Scale. The global scale dissemination infrastructure provides high performance, high reliability, high availability at a really reasonable cost, surprisingly. There's also redundancy. So by posting to the hub, there is now an additional copy of the alert messages separate from the originator, who might themselves be affected by the very thing. The tsunami is reported by Tonga, but Tonga is not going to be up for long because there's a tsunami. Security and authenticity, of course, we have gold standard security and authenticity on the hubs, which are typically on clouds. And then you have analytics. By having a centralized aggregator, it's really simple to analyze and optimize your alert dissemination. At all scales, these CAP alert hubs are based on this very simple 3-level architecture. You need always to look for this when you're acquiring or developing a CAP system. First, the basic unit of an emergency alerting system is the individual CAP alert. It's an XML document following the schema in ITU X.1303. From a policy perspective, the CAP alert must be a public legal document. according to the online dictionary, free dictionary. A public document is one that is or should legally be readily available for inspection by the public as a document issued by a government department. Okay, so if you think you're solving your alerting by doing Facebook, no. You do not own what is published on Facebook. Facebook does. They can shut themselves down. They did in Australia. They did in Canada. You need your own copy that you maintain because it's your records management responsibility as an official alerting authority. Next up, a CAP alert by itself is just one data at rest. To get a series of CAP alerts, we have a CAP alert feed. That's the access mechanism to the individual CAP documents, if you will. This typically provides time-ordered links to the CAP alerts. It is a published, subscribed service, must be, because during emergencies, communications can be interrupted. Only published, subscribed assures that you never miss anything. You can't use client server or other mechanisms because there's a risk that you could miss some of the messages. We use RSS and Atom. Those are two of the three available common publish subscribe services. So then the CAP Alert Hub is just another feed, also using publish subscribe, and it's also compliant with either RSS or Atom, and it's simply at a higher level of aggregation. So you could say, again, from a policy perspective, it's a collection of records, typically arranged according to time of publication. If you spread that across multiple alerting authorities, you've got that shared situational awareness system, that common operating picture, because for an area, you're seeing all different agencies all having CAP alerts. We can do this at any scale. We can do this down at the city level, which is typically what you do in your emergency operations center. We can do it at a national level. We can do it at a regional level, like all of Europe or all of the Middle East, or global. We can also select alerts into collections to focus on a particular theme. So we might have all alerts having to do with transportation, all alerts having to do with food security, all alerts having to do with nuclear proliferation. Whatever is making sense for that particular need. If we extend this to very long time periods, well, then what we have is an archive, a collection of alerts encompassing perhaps many millions of separate emergencies over decades. Really valuable from a research perspective in particular. So here's an example of one of these alert hubs, the United States Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. It is aggregating alerts from 1,700 federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial alerting authorities. And remember, one of those is the U.S. National Weather Service, which itself has thousands of CAP alert feeds. So this is just an aggregation within one country. Of course, they realize you have to have an aggregated place to pick those up. So folks like Google who want to put alerts out in the United States don't have to go to hundreds of different sources to pick that up. And again, this feed is part of the aggregation that we do in our global scale alert hubs. Meteo Alarm. Meteo Alarm is operated on behalf of 37 European national weather services, and it publishes a CAP feed specific to each nation. So the aggregation serves European scale needs, like travelers. So you can say, hey, I'm not in my normal country, but I want to know what's happening here. But it still serves each nation's own needs because they have that national CAP feed. And Meteo Alarm gets aggregated into the global scale alert hub as well. Here's another one, here's one of the global scale CAP alert hubs, and this is the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, IFRC. I want to hear more about this from the IFRC folks who are here with us today. It's a free source of published CAP alerts, leveraging those emergency alerts for all manner of emergency preparedness and response activities at scales from city to country to global. Expected consumers include the Red Cross and Red Crescent National Societies themselves, but also news organizations, telecom providers, international and national emergency managers, and disaster relief organizations, among many others. Also, the WMO Alert Hub, another CAP alert hub at global scale. It now aggregates emergency alerts from 227 CAP alert feeds published by 148 countries/territories and other sources. This link will take you to those that are currently active. I will note here it's operated by my company, alerthub.org CIC. CIC means Community Interest Company. It's a nonprofit on behalf of the U.S. government support to WMO. A WMO Alert Hub is also a core component of WMO's Global Multi-Hazard Alert System, GMAS, and I think you'll hear more about that from WMO later in the workshop. The UN Action Plan on Early Warnings for All, already mentioned by Cezine, was launched in 2022 at the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Climate Change. It calls for new investments of $3.1 billion to achieve its goal, to ensure every person on Earth is protected by early warning systems within 5 years. Now, I want to just mention, I think some people have the impression that they have $3.1 billion. No, they're out there competing to get $3.1 billion, which they will then use for different things. So it's not money already available, it's money that's being sought. That that action plan rather is organized in 4 pillars. We are particularly concerned with pillar 3, which is the dissemination and communication of warnings. One of the actions in that dissemination and communication pillar is to, quote, establish CAP editor and alert hub to further enhance multi-hazard CAP-based emergency alerting. And again, those are both services offered by my nonprofit company, alerthub.org. The CAP editor freeware, which we'll talk about in the next presentation, is in operational use by 65 countries at this moment, and it's aggregating emergency alerts from 227 CAP feeds. One of the outcomes in the dissemination communication pillar is all countries have the capability for effective authoritative emergency alerts that leverage CAP, suitable for all media and all hazards. That's the exact quote of the call to action on emergency alerting. So it's just parroting the thing we already had agreed. Lastly, I want to mention the Global Digital Compact. Quick show of hands. Who's heard of this? Who knows what the Global Digital Compact is? That's only like 3 hands, guys. The GDC, Global Digital Compact, is an intergovernmental agreement, not a treaty. It's to be agreed at the UN Summit of the Future in 2024. Its goal is to outline shared principles for an open, free, and secure digital future for all. The CAP community compiled 82 endorsements of our input to the GDC. That input says to include this sentence. It's just one sentence of input. Timely warning of life-critical emergencies is essential to public communication services. Seems kind of obvious, but people everywhere benefit from the emergency warning capabilities that are built into broadcast radio and television. They're built into cell broadcast technology. They're built into the intelligent transportation system and many other public communication services. But many services do not include emergency warning. Video streaming. I mentioned earlier, you're watching the football game, you're shopping online. Where's my call text? It's not there. Could be, but they didn't think to include it. Same with social media. Many other technologies that people use routinely. So future public communication services are going to continue this hit or miss approach. That is not acceptable. We must exploit this chance to influence that future. The Global Digital Compact is our best chance. So if your country sends a delegation to the Summit of the Future next year, please be sure they push for including this sentence in the GDC, the Global Digital Compact. And here, you'll see many of your own logos. Most recent one was the Mobile Services folks, GSMA. But we see ESRI, we see WMO, we see ITU, we see the European Emergency Number Association, the International Association of Emergency Managers, etc. Okay, so this concludes my presentation. And here are some links to some CAP videos. Of course, you can all feel free to contact me about anything related to CAP.